Hello there, and welcome back to The Disconnected, here with artist and graphic designer, Miss Beth Morris. Beth, thanks for coming on here and sharing your information with everybody.
It's okay. Yeah, it's great to be on here.
I have admired your work from afar for a long time, so it's just simply an honor to meet you. I appreciate everything that I've seen that you do. For those that don't know any of your work, could you sum up what you do in graphic design?
Yeah. I mainly make it's usually just like kind of in like the indie film related artwork, so either like posters and key art or quite a lot of Blu-ray designs. I work with Deaf Crocodile primarily now, kind of doing most of their like layout work and their wrap covers, and I've also worked with like OCN, Altered Innocence, and Arrow as well.
Yeah. You've done a couple for Altered Innocence that I've truly loved. You've also done some stuff with Utopia that I think are just absolutely brilliant designs. One thing that I just, as an artist, I am baffled by what you can do. What inspires you behind some of these titles? Like with Deaf Crocodile stuff, for example, you seem to pull just the most perfect elements out of a story to make something that is captivating to the eye.
Thanks. A lot of the time with, I guess I kind of like how I work, it's usually just kind of like a feeling of something, or if there's something that's really like stood out to me while watching the film. Particularly with Adele Has Not Had Supper Yet, I just really loved the bit with the cloche, and I kind of just got obsessed. Like, that would be such a great way to like include all the kind of crazy elements from that film in one piece that kind of gives you the right idea for kind of like what the kind of like tone of the film is like, and then still kind of also like pulling from kind of all those like Eastern European poster design styles as well, which like I'm a huge fan of.
I think that's one aspect that a lot of people don't ever consider when even like thinking of the idea of an artist. For many of them, the historical aspects, whether it be of a genre or of a country or of a filmmaker, there's a lot to consider there. Is that something that you frequently research, or is that just something that you've always been enamored with?
Yeah, I've always been like a huge kind of like fan of collage and like photo montage anyway. I did it. So I did my like undergrad just as like a fine art degree. And primarily did a lot of like collage, book art, using like found objects and found things. So I've always kind of been obsessed with it. And then once I started kind of doing more, I guess, like alt film posters, I think between a lot of stuff from like art school, looking at like Bauhaus stuff and a lot of that kind of like protest kind of collage photo montage from there, and then discovering kind of all the kind of like Polish poster scene and then like Czech posters as well. It's just like I just kind of love all that kind of stuff, just being able to like play around with loads of images and just kind of see what pops out and like what feels right for the tone.
This is another thing that I see a lot of people not fully understanding what goes into, specifically on physical media, how design plays a key part in this, because a lot of people, especially nowadays, and I'm sure we're going to talk about AI in just a little bit because it's the hot button topic of today, but a lot of people don't understand, the idea of graphic design not necessarily coming from I'm going to bring out a brush and colors or a pencil and do everything, not grasping that you can literally do a collage of clippings from the film in a way that is meaningful. And actually, you brought up one of my favorites that you've done, which is Adele Has Not Had Supper Yet, which is just it captures the tone of that movie so perfect, which is very difficult because that movie is such a silly like montage in its own way, actually. And then the other one that I think is just astonishing is the Savage Hunt of King Stack that you did for Deaf Crocodile is just gorgeous. Everything about that makes me just want to live in the visual world that you created. Is beautiful. So with collage, could you share a little bit of your process? Like how do you go about creating something like that?
Yeah. It completely kind of like depends from like film to film. Sometimes I might be watching it and have like a really, really strong kind of idea of like, oh, I think this would be really cool as like a fun little collage or cutout thing. And then other times it is just like very slowly kind of going through like stills or images from the film that have like stood out to me, and just kind of playing around with, again, kind of like what feels right. Like with King Stack, it felt quite difficult trying to find the right image for that film, because it is such a beautiful film, but it's very kind of like quiet as well at times, and it was like quite difficult. Like you didn't want to show too much because it's like a kind of like, it's like a ghost story. It was, again, just kind of getting the tone right so that you can get a feel of like what the film might be without it kind of being like too like in your face. It just completely depends. It can either be, I can think of loads of like really over the top collages, or it might be something a bit more simple and like minimal, that I feel might work better for the film.
Yeah, an example of that I mean, was completely taken by, because it almost tells a story by itself. You have this beautiful minimal design for the film Another Body for Utopia, and anybody that has seen the film or even just seen the art, there's so much that you can take away from what that is telling in itself, and it feels really personal. I just bravo, like there's so much built into that art. It's incredible.
Oh, thanks. It was just because I love like the original artwork as well. Like the original poster is amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether or not maybe that would the design I ended up doing for it, whether it would be too simple, whether they wouldn't go for it, because it was really minimal.
Yeah.
But I just felt like that was like enough for the film.
That brings up a good point that I kind of wanted to ask about your stuff specifically, because I've been lucky enough to work with Deaf Crocodile, and so I've seen some of like the early stages of what you're submitting as ideas behind it, and it's long before it's final. It's not a complete project. It's not something that you can, if you've not been doing this a while, you can't even visualize what it's going to be. When you've turned in these, in a way, well, I guess we'll say dailies. It's not really a good word for that. But is there anybody that's ever like pushed back on something simply because they don't have the ability to fully picture what it's going to be when it's all done?
I'm trying to think. I'm sure it definitely has happened a few times, I think. I do like pre-warn, like depending if it's like new people I'm working with, I will be like, these aren't completed versions. These are hopefully going to give you like a rough idea of like what the final concept will be. But I'm trying to think if anyone's really kind of pushed back against it. Sometimes, if people really are like, this is not the kind of style we had in mind, I'll go back.
Right.
And it might end up being something completely different. But usually at least there's something in one of the designs that they might be, gravitate towards, and then I can kind of work from that.
There's one of those in the works right now that people they know they're coming, so saying this exists is not spilling the beans or anything, but there's a reprint coming for Deaf Crocodile's Bubble Bath, and I saw one of the early iterations of the slipcover and I was like, oh, that's going to be neat, and then I saw the final slipcover and I went, damn, this is incredible. It looks gorgeous. I mean, even somebody that's been doing this for a while, I was able to kind of picture what it was going to look like. But man, that final is an incredible piece of art. So it's kind of like a tool. You got to be able to reference, hey, I've seen what this person's artwork is going to look like. I should be able to glean what I think it might look like at the end. So it's a skill almost at that point. With what you've been doing, you've got so many different poster styles and arts inspirations that you can clearly see on your website. The amount of things that you've worked on is huge. Are there any projects that felt like this was a dream project? This was one that I had absolutely wished that I could be a part of, and I'm so glad to have my name associated with it.
Probably like the biggest thing for me was like getting to work with Peter Strickland for his teaser for Flux Gourmet.
Yeah.
Because I was such a huge fan, and like the whole like how I ended up even working with him was because I had entered it was like a movie student competition to design an alternative poster for his short film called Meridian that was on Movie. I entered it, and I think I jointly won it with someone else. And then a couple of weeks later, I got an email from Peter Strickland, because someone had sent the design to him, and he wanted just like a copy that he could print out. And then it was like, I don't know, maybe half a year later, he recommended me to like his producers to do a teaser poster.
Jeez.
Which was crazy. I still can't really believe it happened.
Yeah, all from a contest. That's so cool.
Yeah, and yeah, it was a really big. Still probably one of the biggest things I've worked on. I think in terms of like who was in the film as well. And,
right.
Yeah, I just really loved working on it and just playing around with all the different options. That one is like a big one. And then I also loved working on the alternative poster for Horde. Again, just like getting to like kind of work with like Luna Carmoon and like look at all of her like visual references. And kind of really like, because I do love kind of like 70s poster design and like British films in the 70s that are a bit like odd, all that kind of thing. It's like my favorite kind of stuff that I just like to watch and get inspired by. So it was really lovely to work with someone who's kind of on the same wavelength and like understands kind of what you're going for. So that was really nice.
Right.
And that ended up getting used as a Blu-ray cover for the like release in the release by Premieria in the UK as well, which was really lovely. So it's nice again to see it like printed, because it was just originally digital only.
The Flux Gourmet, it's such a unique piece, and I mean that film, pardon the pun with this, I guess, but it's such a visual feast of really great choice. I mean, it's Strickland. Everything is going to be just masterful, and I can't imagine getting that email and not pinching yourself up.
Yeah, having like phone calls with him and being like, "This is like so strange," but yeah, that was amazing.
For those that are inspired by your work, could you share what kind of tools you use? What are some of the programs that you use? What kind of hardware are you working on? It sounds like a nerdy question, but a lot of people like to know stuff like that.
Still kind of like I'm mainly just using Photoshop for most stuff. And then just like a selection of either textures and things I might scan in, and then I also use a couple of really good websites for textures, and also what else? Whenever I've only done a few kind of like animated bits. Like I did a couple of years ago now for like Arrow Player and stuff, and I use like After Effects as well. And again, just playing around with different textures and things.
Nice. This is probably a good point to bring in now, because Photoshop and Adobe specifically has started embracing the use of AI and the generative AI specifically, where it's essentially creating something out of what you've already put in or what they've already had into the system. And it's controversial. There's a lot of people out there that are fully against it. There's a lot of people out there that are fully supportive of it. There's a lot of people that are starting to use it in design choices. And just first of all, how do you feel about the landscape of that whole arena in 2025?
Yeah, like obviously with a lot of stuff in Photoshop, even if you're just using to like cut it out using AI in some form.
Yeah.
But the whole like generative AI thing is, I kind of like, the whole thing for me is that I feel like it like homogenizes everything. Yeah. Because eventually it's not, actually thinking, it's not coming up with new ideas, it's rehashing certain things. And if everyone starts using it, everything's going to end up kind of looking the same. But I know other people use it to help kind of like generate ideas and things. But at the moment, I pretty much just don't use generative AI. I know obviously like AI is within certain tools that I use, but I don't really use anything like that at the moment, because I know it obviously affects a lot of other people that I know that are like more illustrative work, and it's clearly affecting like jobs that they can get, because people are just being like, I'm just going to use AI to do a poster quickly for my short film or whatever.
Yeah, you did bring up a good point, which I think is something that not enough people are discussing, and that's so many are staunchly against just the I don't even know the concept of AI, I guess. But in all reality, like if you're typing in Microsoft Word and there's spell check, that literally is AI. You're already using it in tons of different areas in your life. You just don't even realize that it's like that. I think specifically, especially artists, really need to hone in on if it's generative AI that they're against. We need to talk with proper terms and spell it out because, yeah, like you said, clipping something in Photoshop technically is using a form of AI because of the way that it identifies it.
Yeah.
There's so many of these software companies that are building companies on the work of others that I can see that being a very difficult touch point for a lot of people. So AI, not the creative powerhouse that it thinks it is, but also it does a lot that we already use in our lives every day.
Yeah. Yeah, there's currently a big kind of thing at the moment in the UK to do with like copyright and AI and whether or not people are still going to be able to have control over what they have written, whether it's like music or artwork, or whether AI will just be able to like use it for free, which is still kind of ongoing, whether or not that's going to be allowed. Hopefully not.
I had no idea that was happening. That's fascinating. That's going to set a big precedent.
So there has been a lot of debate and petitions and things signed, and like quite a lot of like big artists and musicians against it, but I still don't really know whether or not the government are going to stay on the side of like artists and their rights, or whether kind of big business will win, hopefully. But
the world has not had a great track record with all this over the last 10 years or so. Definitely a little worried about that front. All of this film stuff that you are now embroiled in, have you always been a fan of film, or is that something that you came to through art eventually?
I think I've always been a fan of film, but yeah, I think definitely more over the last... probably would have been maybe when I started uni, but maybe, I think just before. So actually, weirdly, when I was in school for, I think it was like a GCSE graphic design project, I'd made kind of like a Saul Bass inspired poster that really, obviously at the time I didn't know, because I would have been about like 14 or 15. Nice. But I kind of did made up a film that basically sounded a bit like Peeping Tom. So it was like a serial killer movie that was killing people to do with a camera, but I didn't know Peeping Tom existed. So a few years later, then I was like, oh, I kind of like weirdly made an entire art project about that film without knowing about it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and then I went to uni and did a lot of like collage stuff and was inspired by a lot of all the beautiful kind of like on-set or like still photography that was made around like the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
When, that they would use in kind of all the lovely like magazine books and like film books. And then, we kind of just stayed kind of like interested in film. Then did a master's in graphic design just before kind of like the pandemic happened.
Right.
And that's kind of like, that's partially how I ended up getting into it, because my job, I was working at a polystyrene studio that basically made big letters and like glittered things for like visual merchandising.
Nice.
And obviously you can't really work from home for a job like that. So I was like stuck at home, had way more time, and started making more like alternative posters while I was doing this graphic design MA. And then things started slowly happened from there. So I ended up doing like a poster and title design for my friend Celine's short Stagger. And then, I think it was just stuff I was interested in, people I was following, and things like slowly kind of built up. So it's been quite not natural progression, but like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Following certain people and like chatting back and forth, and then
I know a lot of people that get inspired by some of this work kind of, take it upon themselves to wish that they could get in the industry. And one of the big questions is always, how did you get here? And you mentioned, a couple of these, like a contest or your friend's shorts. Is there any certain thing that you feel like was a big breakthrough where suddenly, I am going to be somebody that people can actually come to and I can keep getting this work?
I think, I'm not sure. Because I started doing a few small bits, and then I was still working at the studio, but I went down like part time because I was getting a couple of jobs in here and there with like graphic design stuff.
Nice.
But I always thought, I'll get like a more serious graphic design job, and like the film stuff will be like occasional probably, because like there's, I don't know how am I going to get into this? All of the big agencies are based in London, and I live in Cardiff, which is, yes, it's the capital city of Wales, but it's
not London.
It's not really for film. I mean, Doctor Who's filmed here, but but yeah, I never thought that it would end up becoming my full-time job, and it just kind of, I think the biggest thing I feel is definitely kind of like showing your enthusiasm, showing what you want to work on. Because I've managed to kind of keep working within kind of like primarily like indie film scene, which is like stuff that I love. And it also means there's a lot more freedom to play around with designs. Whereas if you're working on bigger films, it gets more specific. And also kind of a lot of things like local to me. So like my local independent cinema chapter, I've done a couple of posters for like some of their seasons and things. Like recently, they're showing all of Twin Peaks over the next.
Oh wow!
I think they started a couple of months ago, but they're showing the whole, like all three seasons, and Fire Walk with Me as well. So I did some artwork for that, and then there's also a film festival not too far from me in Bristol called Cinema Rediscover that I've done artworks for like some of the seasons that they have in the festival for the last couple of years. And I've just been working on one for like this year, which again, I'm quite excited for that to go live. I don't know when it will, probably soon. But it was because of that, so, like a couple of years ago, they'd done like a pre-code cinema season as part of the festival. And because I kind of love like 20s and 30s imagery, it was like so much fun to work on. So Justin from OCN saw the poster, and I think I was following him maybe, but he shared it on his stories, and I dropped him a message, and that's how I ended up kind of like working with him. So it's kind of, I think showing your enthusiasm is like the biggest thing for me.
That's awesome. You have a lot of examples of stuff that you've done. There's probably 20 posters that I would just love to hear the stories behind or what they were used for or something. But there's a couple specifically that I really want to hear what they were used for. One being, this is going to be probably super odd to focus on this one, but the Bruce Lee film Fist of Fury. The Bruce Lee films historically have had very, very similar and specific art style pretty much across everything. But your poster for Fist of Fury is the most unique poster for any Bruce Lee thing that I've ever seen, and I love it. What was that used for, like a local cinema thing?
No, it was, so I get my local cinema was showing, I think they showed all three films, and I hadn't seen it. I actually hadn't seen any of them, I think. But yeah, so I went to see Fist of Fury, and I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. It was great to see it at the cinema. I'm so happy I could see it there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to make a little like fun poster. So that was like, again, kind of like that was relatively quick, I think, working on it, and it was really
Jeez.
fun, and then everybody loved it.
It's so good.
It's amazing.
It's
I
so
didn't
good.
expect it. I was like, I'm just going to do a silly poster.
So I guess taking that, does that mean that pretty much everything on the personal work side of your website, is that all just for you for fun, basically?
Yeah, usually. It's just
Damn.
kind of, I mean, I haven't actually done many alternative posters for a while. I think the last one I did might have been Green Knight, which was partially a thing with like poster spy.
Not planned. Look what I'm wearing right now. Amazing. That was incredible. Wow. That was serendipitous. One film that is on here that not a lot of people in the world have seen. So I'm just stoked to be able to see somebody else that truly loved it enough to make a poster just for fun. Dinner in America. Where did the inspiration for that one come from? Because I adore that movie.
Oh, it's so good. I can't remember. I think it must have been. I must have heard it on. I think it was like Sam Ashes was going on about it on the like Arrow podcast. I think.
Yeah, because they did release it. Yeah.
And then it was on Arrow Player, so I think I must have watched it on there, and I was like obsessed with it. I was like, if I had seen this as a teenager, I would have been obsessed. And yeah, I just really wanted to make. I think I ended up making 2 posters, but yeah, I just really wanted to make something kind of like fun and kind of punk, and yeah. Again, I had like an idea of like what I kind of wanted to do with all these kind of like broken like dinner plates and things, and yeah, it was just it's just such a great film.
It's so fun, so fun. Other than that, not much else I can ask, but I'm sure there's a lot of companies out there that you'd love to work for. Is there any that you're like, man, I hope eventually they contact me because I would love to do some layout work for them?
Obviously Criterion is still like right up there of like the top ones. I would love to work with Eureka as well. Because again, kind of like the range of films they release is always just amazing. And Second Sight maybe as well would be cool.
I also feel like BFI kind of fits your style.
BFI would be amazing. Which I have been like I've kind of been like trying, but I should probably try again. See if I can end up working on something with them. Some of the like flip side releases would be really cool.
Yeah, that would fit your style perfect because there's so many different things to pull from. Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Man. All right. Well, thank you for doing this, Beth. I really hope people look at this and, get inspired to check out your website. The work that you've done is genuinely magnificent. Every single time that I get art from Craig that's going to be on one of the upcoming releases, I'm just blown away. And I've seen so many people for Deaf Crocodile stuff that specifically looking at the standard art get drawn into buying from Deaf Crocodile for the first time. And it really shows how valuable art can be, not only to appeal to the eye for certain people, but it allows you to open your mind to something else. Many of these Deaf Crocodile films specifically are so out there. They're things that no one has ever heard of, except Dennis, who runs the company, who's incredible and knows everything.
I think it's like everything, like almost every film I have never heard of, most of them, which I love.
Right.
Because it's always like such a wide variety of films. It's like, I just love that you just don't know what is going to be released next.
But I mean, with the 2 titles specifically that we talked about early on, is with the Savage Hunt of King Stack and Adele's Not Had Supper Yet. Easily looking at that art, it's easily something that somebody would say, well, I want to watch that. I don't know what it is now, but I want to watch that. And if you hear the titles, that's not necessarily going to grab you immediately, but your art is a huge part in that. So just incredible. Keep it up. I appreciate what you've done for physical media, for Deaf Crocodile, and for some of these films that I also love. It's inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a good one, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for watching The Disconnected. On the way out, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, that you've liked the video, and that you've copied the link to be able to share with someone else that may appreciate this.